Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rob's video blog. Today, we're going to talk about election integrity. Oh, baby! So I've waited a couple weeks to put this out for posterity reasons. Almost a month ago, actually, just about a month ago. Yeah, we had a presidential election. The electing process was significantly changed, supposedly due to COVID restrictions. I won't get into my feelings on that in general, but basically. A lot of states moved over to massive mail-in balloting, which has created a significant issue to this point. And so obviously, it's been significant testimony by people or accusations by people that there was a lot of inaccuracies, things were not done according to election law in a number of states, and potential outright fraud in a number of swing states. That's the narrative that is out there. The other counter narrative that comes from the mainstream media, which you should just immediately discard because they lie about everything, is that this was the most secure election we've ever had. And boy, let me tell you, if anybody knows hyperbole, it's this guy. All right, so. But I'll tell you what, this is what you can do, and you won't see it on mainstream media. Over the past couple of days, a number of states have had hearings in which the accusers of these irregularities and improprieties have gone before the legislature in that state and presented their sworn affidavit and presented an account of what they saw. Some of the witnesses are very credible and have some very good information. Some of them, not so much. It's kind of just around the edges. But I'll just give you a general perspective because I watched most of it. I will just give you a general perspective of it. There are three aspects to this. That is, whatever conclusion you come to, you can come to your own particular conclusion. But there are three aspects to this that I don't think any reasonable person could possibly question or refute. The first one is electronic voting and electronic ballot counting. And I didn't even know this was really like that big of a thing because where I vote in my precinct, we have like World War II surplus style voting machines. They're like these giant electromechanical devices with like the curtain around it, and it's got like the big sheet of paper they put over it, and there's like a light bulb that pops up for your selection, and then you push the button, it goes bleep, and it just records your vote, and then it prints it, and then at the end, supposedly it tallies everything, and it like prints the thing out. But it's like electromechanical. There's not even like computer chips in there. There's no USB ports. It's like pretty old school. Okay, so I didn't even know that there was like scanners and computers and networks, but apparently in these other states, when you vote either on a paper ballot or via a machine, and then you scan some kind of ticket or you scan your ballot, and then it makes a digital image, and then it does various different things, and then eventually it gets uploaded through the interwebs to some database where they tabulate all the ballots. So firstly, the idea that any of these machines, whether they're voting machines or tabulators or anything, are hooked up to the internet is freaking insane. Okay, anybody in IT or anybody who's done anything in a business with their computer knows that the second you hook something up to the internet, it is vulnerable to hacking. It is vulnerable to all sorts of bad things happening. So how we allow in some of our states ballot counting machines, ballot casting machines to be hooked up to the internet, and yes, they are hooked up to the internet. There's eyewitness testimony. These machines are Ethernet plugged into routers that are then Ethernet plugged into the outside gateway to the internet. There's forensic teams that presented evidence to say, yeah, we followed the data packets going to and from these machines. Of course they went through the internet. Some of them supposedly went to Germany. Now, do I know that as a fact? No, but this is what a forensic guy is telling us, right? So the first point that I'm making is that there's no way on God's green earth that any of this stuff should be hooked up to the internet. It just shouldn't. It's a bad idea. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you listen to the testimony of a lot of these people, and there are hundreds of sworn affidavits, of voting irregularities. Poll watchers not allowed to watch what was going on, whether it was taking the ballots out of the envelopes, whether it was counting the ballots, whether it was duplicating the ballots, whether it was transporting the ballots. There are tens, if not hundreds of sworn affidavits of people essentially saying election law was either completely ignored by the individual poll workers and their supervisors, and even in some cases of states, the Secretary of State or the election commissioner giving guidance on what poll workers were supposed to do in direct defiance of what the law is. This is irrefutable. People watch with their own eyes. They said, I watched somebody do this. The law says they're supposed to do that. When I informed them, they just ignored me and carried on. Okay? There's tons of that. And then, like I said, there is guidance from election officials. I think some of this is in emails too. Election officials, secretaries of state, providing guidance to poll workers that is in direct conflict with the state voting law. Okay, so that's a huge problem. If they don't follow the election law, which is there supposedly to ensure integrity, that's a huge problem. You can't count those votes. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If people are supposed to be there watching them take the ballots out of the envelope, and they weren't allowed to watch them take the ballots out of the envelope, that's a problem, right? There's supposed to be a signature match. Supposedly, they didn't do signature match in a bunch of these states. I think in Arizona, the election commissioner just came out and said, we didn't do any signature match on over like 1.2 million mail-in ballots or something like that. And again, you can look all this up yourself. Don't take my word for it. But if they're not there to separate the envelope with the signature and the actual ballot, and then those things are separated forever, you can't ever go back and double check them now. The die has been cast. The entropy has been generated. There is no putting the jack back in the box, if you will. So there are all of this testimony of either workers being wholly incompetent. There was a Dominion contractor who talked about how they ran ballots through scanning machines multiple times. Now, she wasn't alleging, and she was getting too political for my liking in her testimony. I wish she would have just stuck to what she saw. But she didn't even say, hey, these people were directly trying to cheat. What she was saying was these things come in batches of 50. They run through a machine. It's kind of like a scanner or a printer, right? You put if you're going to scan a job, you put 50 pages in the scanner. It goes through the machine. It spits it out the other end. It sends you your scan file, right? Same sort of thing. They put the thing in the machine. It runs through. But what happens, and what she said happened 2 to 3 times an hour, was the machine would jam. One of the ballots would jam in the machine, which is very common if you've ever scanned or printed anything on a multifunction device. And she said what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to open up the machine, clear the jam, restack all of the ballots, the old ballots and the new ballots, and then hit cancel to erase that count to make sure that they don't double count, right? Makes perfect sense. Now, supposedly there's an option where you can continue scanning, but that wasn't recommended because a lot of times, and I've done this at work, when you get a paper jam, it's not one paper. There's like 3 pages in the whole system. There's rollers and all sorts of stuff. So you're not quite sure, well, did this one get scanned and that one didn't? You don't really know where it left off. So at work, that's what I do. I just cancel the whole operation and then just restack everything, flatten out the page, and do it again. So she said that's what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to take it out, restack everything, hit cancel to disregard, the couple ballots that were counted before there was a jam, and recount the whole thing. And she said 2 to 3 times an hour a machine would jam, which makes sense if you're kind of using this on a quasi-continuous basis. That seems reasonable to me. She said they were just putting it through, and then when it jammed, they would just hit continue, restack the whole thing, and run it through. And if you've ever scanned anything, and this is what she's claiming, is like, yeah, sometimes they would run it through 2 or 3 or 4 times because the same page would keep getting jammed. And so they were just counting and counting and counting and counting. And so how many votes got counted 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? Now that she says there was 20 to 24 machines at this place, at the TCF Center, supposedly in Detroit, and they're jamming 2 to 3 times an hour, times 20 machines, times 50 ballots a packet. If you say the average thing jammed halfway through, that's 25 ballots that are getting recounted every time. It's like, it's tens of thousands of ballots that potentially could have got double counted. Now, is there safeguards against this? Is there something in the software that doesn't allow it to? I don't know. But this woman testified this, and to date, there's nobody that has said, well, inside the software there's a barcode scanner, and if it recognizes a dual barcode, it just throws it out anyway, and all this kind of stuff. To which then begs the question, why then was she instructed to make sure that they hit a cancel button or a continue button and follow this procedure? Because if you could just scan the barcode and there's no way to duplicate count things, you wouldn't need to do that. You could scan whatever the hell you want, and as long as there wasn't a unique barcode put in there, it's just going to disregard it. So anyway, the point that I'm making is there is tons and tons of testimony from all these people, and go watch it. Go watch it for yourself and judge whether or not you believe these people or not. But I will say this. There are hundreds of sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury. Nobody wants to talk about it. These hearings were not even broadcast on mainstream media. It's a disgrace. It's a complete disgrace that this was not even shown to the American people. You had to go on YouTube and watch like Right Side Broadcasting that I've never heard of, or NTD News or some crap like that. It was insane, right? So go online, watch them yourselves, and judge the validity, judge the people's testimony for yourself. Like I said, some of them I think are very strong, give very strong cases. Other ones I think not so much. But I'll say this. These people are swearing affidavits about what they directly saw with their own eyes. I was there. I saw them run it through the machine a bunch of times. I was there. I saw them duplicate ballots in the wrong way. I was there, and we were kept out of the center, and they pulled all the ballots out of the envelopes, and by the time we were able to get in there, all the envelopes were gone, so we couldn't do signature match. This was testimony of direct observation. This is not hearsay. This is not that kind of stuff. If you remember, 4 years ago, we had a whole Russia collusion investigation, and there was an investigation into a Ukraine phone call for the president. And look, whether you like the president or not, the crap that went on with that was a disgrace. With the Russia collusion thing, it was all based on a dossier that was completely fake. All the information in it was fake. Not only was it fake, it was produced by an intelligence agent from a foreign country and then paid for by the opposing party. And that was used as the basis for a multi-year investigation into a sitting president that cost tens of millions of dollars. Okay? So if we as a country are going to undertake that level of scrutiny for foreign hearsay paid for by a political opponent of the sitting president, then for God's sake, we have got to take seriously sworn affidavits, hundreds of sworn affidavits of eyewitness testimony of citizens of what went on right in front of them. Maybe there's good explanations for some of these things. I haven't seen them yet. Okay? And the dialogue's not allowed to take place because the media won't cover it. It's a complete disgrace. So I would urge you, go watch it. So the two things. The first thing is these counting machines, these voting machines, these tabulators hooked up to the internet, and the guy gives the whole presentation. He shows a whole network diagram. If you've ever looked at any kind of network diagram for any IT infrastructure, it's a freaking disaster. This machine goes to this thing, it goes through this firewall, and then it's tabulated here, and then it shoots through this, and then there's this. It's like it goes through everything on the face of the planet. And if you don't think that system is ripe for somebody getting into it and screwing with it. Now, do we know that happened? I don't. But just the mere appearance of this is the way that we vote is a huge problem. At least in some of the states, is a huge problem, number one. And then the second thing is hundreds of sworn affidavits by people with eyewitness testimony. Maybe they're credible, maybe they're not, but you got to go ahead and take a look at it. You can't just dismiss it out of hand. And then the third thing is watching all of this, whether you believe the eyewitness testimony or not, or whether there's good explanations for this stuff or not, the one thing that is abundantly clear is the manner in which voting is conducted in this country is so unbelievably convoluted. It's ridiculous. It's completely unnecessary, and there's only two reasons for it. Well, maybe there's three reasons. The only reason why the voting is so unbelievably convoluted is incompetence. Is by making it convoluted, it allows people to do nefarious things. And three, by making it convoluted, you can give hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts to businesses like the voting machine companies that provided the voting machines for various states in these elections. Those are the only three reasons, okay? Because like think about this is how like the mail-in ballots work in some of these states, right? They mail out ballots to everybody on the voter roll. First things first. Months before any of this happened, there were independent organizations that did a study of the voter rolls. They went to the county clerk and said, "Give me the voter roll for this county. Give me the voter roll for this precinct." In Nevada alone, they found, I want to say it was like 100,000 people who either had the wrong address listed, weren't in the state, or were dead. And they said, "Fix the voter roll. Fix the voter roll. You're going to send out mass mail-in ballots to either the wrong people, the wrong address, to dead people, all this kind of shit. Why would they not fix that?" It's very simple. Either complete incompetence. I would say it's incompetence not updating the voter roll if they were supposed to do it on their own. But when somebody comes to them and says, "Look, I did the work for you. Here it is. All you have to do is update the database," and they don't do it, it's no longer incompetence. It's corruption. Why don't they update the voter rolls to fix it? It's very simple to do. These are just random people who are getting freedom of information requests for the voter rolls, going through them and going, "Hey, this guy's 114. There's no way he's alive." Or they're just going through the change of address requests that are filed with the United States Postal Service and checking against the voter roll and going, "This guy filed for a change of address. You need to fix the voter roll. He no longer lives here. He moved out." And they didn't fix it. Tens of thousands in some states and hundreds of thousands in other states. Why wouldn't they fix it? Because it muddies the water and it opens up the opportunity. It just creates a whole swath of questioning. That's if you're trying to convince people that things went the way they were supposed to go, right? You would have done two things. One, you would have done everything you could to make sure it was secure. Not updating the voter rolls is not doing that. And two, when these questions get raised, provide answers. They're having these hearings in all these different states. Dominion Voting Systems hasn't shown up to one of them. They didn't even send lawyers. They have no one there to say, "Hey, look, you guys are making all these wild accusations that votes were switched, it was hooked up to the internet, stuff went to Germany." This is all easily verifiable with technical information. They can provide the source code and just go, "Here's the source code. Here's the USB stick that was there. You guys have the sticks you have the USB sticks with the software on it. Here is, you can decrypt it with an encryption key to give you the source code that compiled the software. Here it is. Go look through the code, and you'll see for yourself that nothing was done untoward during this election." It's very simple. They can put it to rest. And don't give me this bullshit about, "Oh, it's proprietary business information. They can't provide the source code." That's horseshit. That's complete bullshit. Because when businesses are buying software from other businesses in B2B business transactions, they do code audits all the time. They sign non-disclosure agreements that say, "We're going to look at your source code, make sure it's doing what you say it's going to do, make sure that we're satisfied with the way that it operates, and our people are going to look to make sure that it operates the right way. And here is the signed non-disclosure agreement saying that we will never use or divulge the contents of the source code." So there's no legal reason why these guys shouldn't be handing over the source code to all these states to show them, "Hey, look, have your experts go through it. Everything was on the up and up." They don't show up to the hearings. They don't even send lawyers. They don't put out any statements refuting any of the allegations, and they don't provide the code. So again, if you're trying to convince people that everything was fine, why not do something so simple like that? It's easily done, and this is like really important, right? So they didn't update the voter rolls in many of these states, despite the fact that they were given the opportunity to and given the information to simply update it. The voting software company that there's allegations of vote switching and all sorts of stuff and potential to hacking, it's just insecure in general. They can simply come out and just show the code to people and say, "Look, here's the code. You can look at the software that was run on these machines. Everything was copacetic." They're not doing that. And then the third thing is they're asking for audits, like forensic audits in some of these states. Can we have a forensic audit? No. Why not? We have all of these questions. We have hundreds of sworn affidavits of people saying that things were done untoward. Ballots looked like they were, excuse me, people said that they saw giant boxes of ballots that were never folded. Never folded ballots, perfectly printed out. Some woman said she saw hundreds of ballots that had exact same markings, almost like somebody used a stamp and it wasn't filled out. Another woman said, "Hey, I saw the same signature on like 50 ballots." Right? So a recount isn't going to do anything. You have to do a full audit of this kind of stuff to find out what happened. And in some cases where you're supposed to do signature match and matched the ballot to the envelope, they were separated, and so the die is cast, and that can't even be audited. Why aren't they allowing full audits in these places? Again, if everything was done on the up and up, and the only thing that went wrong was a few clerical errors here and there, which there's going to be clerical errors, there's going to be human errors, there's going to be stuff like that, why won't they allow a full audit in these places and in these precincts and in these counties? Again, it just makes people feel like you have something to hide. And then the last thing is, in Pennsylvania and in Detroit and a number of places in Michigan and Pennsylvania, it's just blatantly true that poll watchers were not allowed to be there when they were counting. I mean, there's videotape evidence of this. They had to go to court to get a court order, I think in Philadelphia, or maybe it was Michigan, I can't remember, all these places, they're blending together, to watch the vote being counted. I mean, they just didn't let them. There's video evidence. They covered windows so people couldn't see, and then when they got in there, they put them in corrals. They put them in little pens, and then people, if you're supposed to be watching somebody counting ballots or creating duplicate ballots and stuff like that, you have to be able to see it. I don't know. I've got better than 20/20 eyesight, supposedly. My doctor told me last time I went. I can't see a little bubble like this big from 6 feet away. And on top of that, there was a judgment, I believe it was in Michigan, where they went to court and a judge said, no. They have to be allowed. If they're challenging something or they're trying to do observation, they have to be allowed to get closer than 6 feet, at least briefly, to discuss a challenge, to observe what they're supposed to be doing. And these people were kept tens, if not hundreds of feet away. And again, so it's like, if everything is on the up and up, if you're doing everything proper, and the only thing that's going wrong is there's administrative errors here, honest administrative errors here and there, then you have nothing to hide. Why would you kick these people out? Why would you not allow them to watch the process? And so what I would just urge you to do is watch the testimony in all these states. It's on the internet. It's on YouTube and a couple other platforms. You can watch them because the mainstream media certainly doesn't want you to watch them. Watch the testimony and connect the dots and just ask yourself, why is nothing about this whole process being transparent? Why is everything being kept secret and nothing is being transparent? I believe in Pennsylvania and Michigan, they had like a tabulation chart that was up on the website and they took it down. Why did you take it down? Well, because people were doing data analysis on it, and some of the numbers looked a little odd, and so they took it down. And if that's not the case, all you have to do is put it back up. If there's nothing statistically wrong with the numbers that were reported on these charts, then just put them back up. What is the big deal? It's just at every turn, it's like they're not showing it to you, they're not showing it to you, they won't answer the questions, they won't tell you why this was done, they didn't follow election law, and it's like nobody believes that this was legit. And again, look, Joe Biden could have won the legitimate vote. It's very possible. And if he did, then he's the president, right? Honestly, this isn't even about Biden and Trump. If we have fake elections in this country, like legit fake elections where law is just completely ignored, or people who are supposed to be counting votes and carrying out the policies and procedures have no idea what they're doing to the point where there's a gross miscount, that's a huge problem. That's like an undermining of everything, of the whole system. So you got to figure it out. You got to make it better. And the thing that drives me nuts about this is there's absolutely zero reason why voting has to be this complicated. It's so simple. People go and they get voter identification. Just like you get a passport, you get a deep throat background check by the government. They verify you are who you are. You get a photographed identification card that expires after a certain period of time, and you use that to go vote in person. And you fill out a paper ballot and you put it in a locked box. And then when the ballots are counted, we do it like Canada does. And oh God, if Canada didn't dunk on us for our voting inabilities, we just do what they do. You fill out the paper ballot, it goes in the box, you mark the person on the voter roll that you've checked their ID, their voter ID for as having voted, and then when the ballots get counted, if there's 2 parties, 3 parties, 4 parties, every single ballot gets independently counted by each party. and then they compare tallies. And at the end, they all post their results, so you can see what did the Republicans count, what did the Democrats count, what did the Libertarian Party count, what did the Green Party count, what did the Independent. So you could put all the numbers up there, and they should be really, really, really damn close. And then there's no question as to what happened, what didn't happen, because in a lot of these precincts, and listen, it could happen in Republican precincts too. I'm not saying it's exclusive to Democrat precincts. In a lot of precincts, you have one party that controls the whole thing, and then you have observers there who, based on the testimony of these people, every time that they said, hey, that doesn't have like a signature, or hey, like that ballot's damaged, or hey, like this doesn't have a date on it, you can't count that one. They were just like, nah, we're going to count it anyway, and just went through. So it's like, it's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. And it's so simple to correct. You could use blockchain technology, which would be even better. It might be a little too complicated for the older people. So I'm a big fan of voter identification cards issued. You fill out the paper ballot. It goes in a locked box, and then all the parties count them. All of them. Not just one. They all count them, and then they compare at the end to make sure that everything's copacetic. But that'll never happen because that's too simple. That makes too much sense. It doesn't enrich corrupt people. It doesn't enrich the politicians, and it doesn't create media headlines for the media organization. So I guess it's my fanciful hope, which I know will never come true. But nonetheless, I'm here at work, guys, and I know this was a long one. I hope you hung in there through it, and I appreciate you watching. So have a good one.